Back? Okay, we're back. Hey there, my name is Laura Winter, and we are back with STAX Talk. Thank you very much, Sam, George, and Leslie, for letting us in on just how critical space systems are to our prosperity, what the actual value of space and what it brings to our national and also international economy, right? Because without it, well, we don't get a whole lot done. So, we are now on to our next session, and our next session is with Gwen Clavon of Amentum. She is a Senior Vice President of Cybersecurity and Threat Mitigation. And Gwen, could you take a moment and tell us a bit about Amentum and what you do there?
Certainly. Thank you for having me first and foremost. And second, Amentum is probably a mystery to a lot of people because I just came from about a year ago, almost 3 weeks in, the September 27th will be our 1-year anniversary of 20,000 people from Jacobs Engineering merging with Amentum.
And by the way, Amentum is our presenting sponsor for STAX Talk, so thank you very much.
And so Amentum is a 50-plus thousand person company, $15 billion a year in revenue, I think we'll do this year. We're in all of the Intel community, all of DoD, and we're in 80 countries around the world. We have been, this journey for the last year has been very transformative for the Jacobs team that's come in to Amentum, and we have a lot of work that we're doing in space, in Intel and Cyber, which is where I work in the Intel and Cyber business. I've been doing that for almost 40 years. I know my face my voice doesn't tell that, but yeah, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do what we do to keep space, our defense, our EU and NATO partners safe.
Now, Gwen, right, when we start talking about security and cybersecurity particularly, which is what you really work on, right, and space systems, most people do think about that in terms of IT or information technology, right? But you're here today to talk about something a bit different, and that is operational technology. And I'm not really sure everybody understands what that is, both here in the room and actually, those who are watching us, right? So what is operational technology? What does it really mean in, vis-a-vis information technology, OT versus IT?
Sure. If you think about IT as data and confidentiality and things that users do on a daily basis on their network, think of OT as those critical infrastructure, your transportation, your wastewater treatment, your manufacturing, your space stations, keeping those safe. And I actually have some statistics from a DoD survey where if you think about the endpoints, the number of endpoints from an IT versus an OT, it's exponential in number. You've got 10 million endpoints from DoD to 2.6 billion physical ICS endpoints for a physical security problem. That is a big problem. You also have 5 operating systems from a IT perspective, and you've got 180,000 operating systems from a physical cybersecurity perspective. So the work that has to be done to keep those systems, you also, from a IT perspective, most times you're looking at 3 to 5 years to refresh. Most physical assets, most ICS systems are refreshed every 30 to 40 years. So if you think about the vulnerabilities that exist in something that has been sitting for 30 years with no updates, no changes. And one of the easiest ways to talk about that is if you took an elevator today or any day, they're running on Windows 95. Exactly. Out of support from
that's
Microsoft.
Old stuff.
Correct. And we have operating systems older than that on some of our OT infrastructure.
Are there any people who actually work on fixing Windows 95 anymore?
No, you just pray it doesn't break. Just kidding. No, there are people, if you remember, and a good example is I was here during the millennium change, right? And we had to go and find COBOL developers. And we dug into some deep HR files to find where are our COBOL developers to help us with the change from 99 to 2000. It is almost the same. That is one of the biggest problems we have with the OT cyber. It is very different from IT cybersecurity training and what you understand versus an OT cyber engineer.
You also used an acronym. You said ICS. What is that?
Industrial Control System. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
My
We just want to
apology.
bring everybody along for the ride.
I come from an acronym-heavy world, and I apologize. So thank you for calling me out.
No, that's fine. I just want everybody to understand what you're saying so that they can, feel, what it is that you're trying to do. So, right. Well, then, what is the state of play in securing these systems? I mean, if we're working with things that are Windows 95 or Windows 11 or whatever 11. That is.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean,
no, I think the state there we are very vulnerable. If you think of some of the events that have happened in the last few years where our adversaries have taken advantage of those systems being in the state that they are. And so every time we allow those kind of exploits or those vulnerabilities to be exploited, we have put critical infrastructure. If a wastewater treatment system is vulnerable, it can have devastating implications for a community. If your water is infiltrated and puts a lot of toxic waste into it, no one is going to be well after that. You'll have a lot of sick people. You'll have hospitals. You'll have a lot of vulnerabilities that will have devastating impact to a community. And people don't realize that there's a lot to go in. It's not just having someone walk around and make sure nothing drops something into a wastewater treatment. It's making sure that nobody does anything that offsets the levels or the balance of what's being done to manage and maintain those systems.
So now that we know that IT and OT are different things, how is the approach to securing operational technology for space systems different than doing it for information technology for space systems,
well,
right?
The data side of doing IT or the enterprise IT is very different than thinking about a launch system or a rocket system or even the manufacturing a system that or development of a rocket or a space asset. If somebody compromises that, gets the wrong data in, guess how much money is wasted? We were just talking about money. If somebody infiltrates a system and puts the wrong information into the development and it gets manufactured, it's going to fail.
Well, give us an example. What do you mean?
So
there's a lot of its and things.
Well,
and
if someone infiltrates the design
of
a space system, a rocket.
Okay, let's start with that. Infiltrates the design of a rocket.
And they put in some elements that shouldn't be there. Is that rocket? So I'm not a rocket scientist. Nor do I play one on TV.
It's a scary dream, but let's dream.
But if I were developing a system and it's as opposed to its trajectory being whatever, I don't know the elements of it. But if I put something in that design that said go down instead of up, just to put it in layman's terms that I can understand.
That would be a bad day.
That would be a bad day. And think about the sometimes billions of dollars that went into that design and build. Does that make sense?
And the effect afterward. Because
Correct.
there's
and who knows where it's going to go down.
Right.
Right. It could go down in a residential area. It could go down in a system where It could be a nuclear target. So you just don't know. And if these things aren't secured properly, or at least we have the resources to secure them and see when things aren't acting the way they should or built the way they should be, bad things can happen.
What about damage to reputation for a company? That would be pretty valuable.
Yes, but I'm more concerned with the individuals and the business. Yes, but reputation is definitely a bad thing if that happens on your watch, right?
All right. Well, we know that multiple administrations have made cybersecurity and also securing space systems a priority, right? We have Space Policy Directive 5, that was 2020. Earlier this year, one of the last things that the Biden administration did was a presidential order on cybersecurity and developing more tools for cybersecurity. So it's not like various administrations or parties, have a different view towards securing space systems and securing operational technology.
It is a priority. It has to be. And it has to be a collaboration between the government, industry, because industry brings that innovation, government brings that policy and guidance. And then we also need our other partners, our EU, our NATO partners, who are also battling and going about trying to see how to utilize space to advance their communities and their worlds.
So for it to be a priority, right, and for all of those different nodes that you explained was 180,000, which is kind of a big number for me to get my brain around, just that many different endpoints, yep. Right? Seeing that there's so many endpoints, then what would be some of the tactics that our adversaries and malicious actors use against operational technology? And these malicious actors aren't just always adversaries, right? I mean, they can be non-state actors, they can be criminals.
Oh, it could just be some kid who's curious to see what they can do, right?
That's not malicious, but yes, or at least I hope not, right?
Well, it isn't, because they don't understand when they do these things that there are consequences, right? And some of those consequences could be end of life for people. And so when you have a vulnerability that's exploited, be it an outdated operating system, be it an inroad, and they do, now what we're seeing is people using IT assets to get access to OT assets. And so if you're using passwords, but a lot of these systems are air-gapped. So the one thing I tell my OT engineers is you're going to get dirty, right? I don't want to go to a wastewater treatment plant, but I have been there. I'd much rather put on a hard hat and go to a construction site rather than mucking around in wastewater. But the only way you're going to find some of these vulnerabilities and where there are problems is to get dirty. And that is what I would say the difference between an IT and an OT engineer. They are the guys who understand the infrastructure. They understand those critical assets that they're trying to secure and make sure that any vulnerabilities are at least as well as they can be covered.
Now, this summit is really about space systems, right? And it's interesting that you've mentioned terrestrial infrastructure. And there is terrestrial infrastructure for space systems, right? There are ground control, mission control, launch, manufacturing, Major Tom, exactly.
Sorry.
That's all right. We need a soundtrack, and I know you do music as well. So right, okay, we're going there. But space systems really present a different kind of a challenge here, right? I mean, because once it's launched, it's in orbit. It's not like you can go, put on the hard hat like a construction.
But think about those ground
systems, right?
Think about those ground systems.
Right.
Some of those are 30 years old, right? Some of those ground systems have those vulnerabilities.
So then
some
what
of
kind
those
of tactics
assets
would be used against a ground system with those kind of vulnerabilities?
Well, if you think about, let me give you probably an easier one, a satellite system. If I take down a satellite system, and we talked about this in the previous session, GPS if GPS systems go offline, they have more devastating impact than somebody driving into a lake, right? If they take them down, somebody's not going to get to a hospital in time. Somebody's not going to, is life could be on the line because those systems are no longer available. But think about it from a launch perspective. If those GPS, if we think we're launching an asset to an area that's open, and it's not. And so we also have assets in space that if those data lines, those payloads that we're expecting don't come down, they come down, but they're not really the information that we want. We're giving bad information to our intelligence community, to our DoD community. So as they do their planning for their mission, if we're giving them bad data because we think that there hasn't been or there has been a compromise, what does that do to protect our warfighter, protect the communities, the areas that they're protecting?
Is there a particular kind of thing, though, that you're seeing in the sense of our adversaries targeting ground systems, our adversaries targeting on-orbit assets?
They're targeting everything, trying to find the inroads, right? So it's just like our IT systems. If you think about how many pings or opportunities that people try to find openings or inroads to get into their systems, they're doing that with our space assets. And now that we have the $250,000 constellations going up almost daily, and I know that's an over, but not really, right? We have constellations going up almost on a weekly basis, let's say.
We have a launch about, what is it, every 28 hours?
Correct.
Leslie, are you here somewhere to check my homework? But yeah, I think it's every.
But it is, if you think about every time those assets go up, there's a vulnerability that could be going up there with it. And I don't think that we as a nation or as a industry are taking that lightly anymore because of the fast-paced movement of space, the fast-paced desire to get to space and to use those and to create those data sources and to use them and to create this digital economy that is coming from all of those space assets and all of the things that can come out of having those assets in space. But if we don't secure them, it's almost back to, dirty data. What you put in is what you get out. But if somebody's putting something in there that wasn't expected to be in there and we don't know it until it's too late, there could be catastrophic damage done. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I was wondering, do you have an example of perhaps a recent incident with space systems and operational technology you could share with us?
So there was a Russian attack in 22 where they actually, that was more.
You talking the Viasat?
Yes.
Okay.
Wasn't that 22?
That was 22. That actually occurred late at night, early morning, prior to Russian tanks invading Ukraine. They were coming over from Belarus.
Correct.
Right? And before that all kicked off, before that sort of physical activity on the surface of the Earth, there were multiple attacks that were launched against Viasat systems. One, I believe, was a DDoS attack.
That is correct.
Another one was an attack on firmware, which went specifically to an operational technology of allowing the routers that would receive the signals and route them to other
wherever, correct,
other systems. And something went wrong with the routers, and so much so that they broke, but they didn't break. They just didn't function anymore. And this problem actually was felt, not just in Ukraine, but throughout Europe.
Correct.
It stopped a wind farm in Germany, and I think it was felt as far away as Morocco.
Correct.
Right? So that was, yeah.
And
I
that
guess
was
I've just given the example.
No. I appreciate it. So it is happening, right?
Right.
And that was one of the major ones in 22. But we get reports all the time of different attacks on not only our space infrastructure, because those mission systems can't fail. If we are thinking about what it costs to take those missions on, and then two, what the payload that we're expecting once those missions are successful. And so if they're disrupted by a nation actor or some nefarious person trying to do, or country, or trying to get to them, they could do damage and cost us a lot of money and set us back. Because a lot of work went to getting us to the point where we're making that investment to launch those assets.
So, can an attack on operational technology in a space system impact space operations, which we're pretty sure
Yes,
it can?
it can.
But could it also actually threaten our personal security?
Of course it does. If it, like, I'll go back to the GPS. I'll go back to the data that we're getting out of those systems. If that data, if we don't have it, the increased knowledge that data allows us to have, and a lot of that data comes from space, especially our geospatial, our telemetry that we get. A lot of our IC agencies depend on space-based data for their decision making, for also to make sure that they can keep us and our allies safe. So if we don't have that, and the Ukraine example is a great one, right? If you think about the attack that happened because of a space asset and a space problem.
We also have here in Colorado, and I'm from California, and we share, unfortunately, some similarities in terms of mountains and wildfires, right? And I would imagine that keeping those systems that actually support fighting wildfires, monitoring wildfires, being able to send out alerts for wildfires would be a pretty big deal, no?
They are, and I sit on the board of a company called Earth Daily Federal, and they just put up a constellation about a month ago, and they use their data and their resources to help with fires and extraction of folks who are lost in places that are hard to get to and hard to get out of. And so there is so many use cases for using those kind of resources as they get. And not to give Earth Daily a plug, but
I'll give them a plug, why not?
I know that one intimately because I sit on their board meeting every month. So.
All right, so then what steps should organizations take? What steps should, let's say, the U.S. government take? I mean, we have SBD 5, we have the presidential executive order, which I believe has not been rescinded, that particular one on cybersecurity. At least I hope not. Right? What should government do to support securing operational technology, do you think?
Well,
and then after that, organizations. I'm splitting them up just because they have different kind of powers,
I
right?
think the government is taking this very seriously. I believe the government is working to collaborate with industry. I think they are also looking to make OT cyber just as important as IT cyber. And I think what we have is an education problem as much as a physical and people problem, right? Like I said, we have a lot of systems engineers and IT engineers. The cybersecurity in an OT or industrial cybersecurity, the numbers are not as great. And so one of the things we've been working on at Amentum is collaborating with education organizations like ISC2 to get people certified and get people excited about the difference that they can make focusing around not sitting at a desk looking for those problems, actually getting out in the field and learning what industrial security is and the importance, and from a space perspective, which is probably even a better selling point with it being the final frontier. An opportunity for young people to get excited about what's next and the next generation of what cybersecurity is all about.
So you said 180,000 endpoints as an IN dash points.
Correct.
All right. Well,
Ian,
Ian, right. So that means there's stuff that's already in the system.
there's stuff that's already there that we haven't looked at, that hasn't been touched, that needs an update, but it can't break, right? We can't take something, we can't take a space launch system down and say, oh, we're going to replace it, right? It has to go through a life cycle to be replaced. It also has to make sure that we understand everything about it before we even think about taking it down to replace it with something else. And it has to be a switchover. And that's one of the things that we do in industrial security. Nowadays, we're building digital twins to show us what some of those systems look like. And I thought it was interesting when we were talking about the finances, because there's so much room to grow in space, but if you think about all of the cabling and the stuff that we have under, that is an industrial problem. If somebody cuts, and we had
We've
an
had
incident,
it.
right, where wires were cut, that cuts down a lot of connectivity for countries for states and counties and countries that manage their infrastructure to some degree. If those data lines, those pipelines are cut and shut down, not only does it impact what's going on up top, but it goes above the water as well as on land.
Okay, so let's complicate it.
Why not?
Artificial intelligence. That's
Yes.
pretty complicated. That's scary. That's like
It-
fast thinking, fast machine learning. I mean, the attack vectors can increase. The AI powered attacks are allegedly able to learn how to evade detection,
But we're
right?
using machine learning tools to help us do intrusion detection a lot faster, right? Machine learning is not new to the Intel community. And so I like the fact that AI is the new hot button for everybody. But as I said, I've been around the block quite a long time. And we've been doing machine learning for a long time using those tools. They've gotten better, don't get me wrong, but we are using them now to help us with intrusion detection, to look at those data sources. When we're building our digital twins, we're taking those and building out scenarios that take that data and we process it fastly to see where we're going. So everything has a place. And I think AI is only going to help us get better, get to some of those resources. But for industrial security, we also are dependent on signals. We're depending on monitoring of those signals to see where, and getting those signals in places that can tell us, is it breaking down? Is there a vulnerability? Has there been a hack?
So we're getting to the end of our time. So this last question I want you to think hard on. Excellent. What's your call to action? What do you want the people here in this room, right? A lot of them are working in this sector, in space. They are threat experts, mitigation experts, and they're folks that are listening and watching online. What is it that you want them to walk away with? What do you want them to do?
I think the biggest thing for me is collaboration. I think the more we get together and talk about what the vulnerabilities are, where the possibilities are, especially as space is evolving so fast, the better off we'll be. And I think just like anything else, you have to admit that there is a problem, that those vulnerabilities are there, and that if we don't pay attention to them, they will kick us in the shoe.
For lack of a better term.
That's right.
I see.
And I think that's the call to action, that everybody in here who has a stake in space, who has a stake in cybersecurity, who has a stake in the organization that they support, owes it to Get out there, find out where those honeypots are, where those opportunities to collaborate and talk to people about what they're seeing, or what they're working on. I mean, we don't have any shortage of engineers who are happy to talk about what they would like to see and maybe collaborate with the right partner to build it out or to at least write a paper or put it out there. I think there's so much opportunity for us to come together as a community to do that.
Now, I'm going to give a shameless plug for the Space Information Sharing and Analysis Center, the Space ISAC, because the Space ISAC is in many ways a clearinghouse and a way for, at least for commercial organizations and actually also for government organizations, space agencies, to collaborate, to share threat data, and to push out threat data and alerts. So there might be a good foundation right here in this building where we are coming to you from right now. Anyway, Gwen, thank you so much. And also thank you to Amentum for sponsoring this STAX talk. And hopefully we're going to do this again.
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody's time, and I look forward to talking and meeting with anybody who's interested. Amentum's done some really critical work in space. We have a very large NASA program. We are looking at doing some really cool stuff with Golden Dome, as is everyone else. But we certainly have a lot of opportunity to share and meet. So thank you.
Everybody, give it up for Gwen, please. And we'll be right back.